to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. I am your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40. Women Beyond 40 is a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond, and you can check us out at WB40.com. Also on today's episode, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Alex Cecile podcast, which you can find now on all your podcast apps, and a shout out to my lovely co-host Joe Pybus. Today in the studio, I am really excited to welcome my next guest. She's an incredible woman. She's incredibly innovative. Her name is Dr. Lisa Beckett, and Lisa has gone from having a stellar career as a successful GP to suddenly becoming a tech entrepreneur. She has built and created a platform called Candor, which allows people to have telehealth visits for specific things. Hello and welcome to the Confessional. Dr. Lisa Beckett, how are you?
Hey, Sandy, thanks so much for having me. I'm really good.
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm just astounded by the things that you've been doing. This is kind of really exciting.
Oh, thank you.
So let's start from the beginning, though. So you're a doctor, you're a GP, and you've been a successful GP. Did you always want to be a doctor? Is that something that you always thought that's my path?
Look, when I was younger, I guess I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went through all the usual phases that you do as a kid. And, I wanted to be a dancer at one point, and I wanted to be a teacher at one point. And I actually spent a lot of my childhood wanting to be an archaeologist. And, I was really interested in like Egypt and the pyramids, and I wanted to be that person that found that new dinosaur. And it was such an exciting thought. And then I realized just how many bugs and spiders would be involved in something like that. So I kind of moved on from that one. And I think it was probably somewhere during high school where I realized I was drawn to all of those science and psychology subjects, and really wanted to do something along those lines. So I did a biomedical degree, and, during that decided I wanted to go to med school. And it was really early on in my training that I decided I wanted to be a GP. And I was really quite a big advocate for general practice. I was part of the general practice student network, and I did a lot of promotion for them. And I got involved with the registrar training, and it's always been this passion to be a really good GP. And I think, having a really good general practitioner in your life is really invaluable. And so, they know you so well, they know your family, they kind of treat you through everything that you're going through. And you've kind of got to know a lot about everything. And so, it's quite an impressive position to be in, but it's really undervalued because, you don't really appreciate just how much it is that your doctor actually knows about everything that they're doing. And, as opposed to like those specialists who have so much in-depth information about the things they treat, we kind of have to be prepared for everything that walks through the door. And so no day is the same, which is, it was quite an exciting field to get into. And so then, after I finished my training, I realized that I'm not used to not studying. And so it's really weird for me to have any spare time. And so I've kind of continued on and added a few things since. And I'm a lactation consultant. I've got a diploma in child health, and I'm actually doing a professional diploma in medicinal cannabis at the moment. So, it's really strange for me to not be studying something. But, medicine is a great field to be in for that because there's always more. And I think now being an entrepreneur as well, there's always something new. So I'm involved in every aspect of our business, and there's, some steep learning curves. But it's great to be able to take on some new roles and new skills, and, it's really exciting. And, we're definitely in the right field to kind of keep that lifelong learning, which, I think medicine has been a good pick for me.
Oh, it sounds like it has. And I can see like just even how passionate you are when you talked then about like learning more about lactation, becoming a lactation consultant, etc. We speak to so many women on this podcast who are sort of now into the perimenopause phase and the menopause phase. And I think it's quite extraordinary that a lot of women don't realize that perimenopause, for example, lasts for so many years, or can last for
Yes.
so many years. I'm always thrilled to speak to female doctors, because I think that's getting better. I really do believe that and this is my advice always to people, is that find yourself a really good GP, someone who will
Yeah.
listen to you and understand what it is that you're going through. And I think women innately, not that male doctors can't do that, but I do think female doctors innately kind of understand things about when you're pregnant, or in childbirth, or heavy periods, or whatever it may be, because they're living it too, right?
Absolutely. And look, it's really difficult. And we, like, as much as we try to relate to our male patients, we don't have that understanding of their lived experience either. But a really good female GP is really going to understand what it is you're going through. Even if they're at a different life stage, there's still that empathy and that kind of we're in this together kind of feeling, which is, we're all going to go through these things at some point. And there are so many different ways that we can handle them, that we can make it better, because there is a lot that you'll go through, and a lot of that sort of perimenopause stage can be really difficult for people, and knowing that there are things you can do that will help with that, it makes a big difference. And we really do want you to be as comfortable and as have that good quality of life as much as you possibly can. So definitely get yourself someone you're comfortable with.
Agreed. And a big shout out, to my female GP, who, just knowing that you have choices when you're going through perimenopause, that these days it's not the mantra of just suck it up and get over it, has
absolutely
completely changed now, which is great. So you've gone from successful GP to tech entrepreneur. That's incredible. So congratulations, by the way. But tell us all about your incredible platform, Candor.
Thank you. Look, it has been a bit of a change. So Candor is basically a online medical platform where patients can come and have these kind of embarrassing or difficult conversations that they may not be comfortable seeing someone in person to have. So we have a big focus on, say, sexual health. And, you can have that conversation as a text-based conversation. So patients fill in a form with all of their medical information. We ask about, that particular concern they have, but also some background stuff. So, medications they're taking or things they might have tried, and the reasons that they're not using them anymore. And then that all gets sent to their Candor GP. And that doctor is a fully qualified Australian GP. So we want to work with the best and the brightest, and we're very passionate about having good quality medical care. And so that gets reviewed by them. And there's a bit of back and forth between doctors and patients with a text-based conversation, kind of like having a WhatsApp chat with your doctor, to make sure that we are, completely understanding of what each other is looking for. And we can then tailor a treatment towards that patient, which we then will send directly to the patient to their door. And so it's a nice, easy thing for everyone involved. We work with very specific consults. So we're not a standard general practice, and we don't claim to be. And so we're very supportive of having a regular GP. And, we like to work with them as opposed to being an alternative to them. And so, we have chosen these particular conditions that we work with so that we can go, look, this is something that's appropriate for us to do online. And we're able to, have all of that information to make a good quality informed decision. And we make it nice and easy for patients by just sending them their medication, often on a subscription kind of model. So, once you're about to run out of, say, your pill, then you'll get the next one delivered. And, it makes it nice and easy for them too. So it's been really exciting to kind of get into something a little bit different.
Oh, that's so exciting. And how did what was the brainchild for this? How did it come about?
Look, there were a few things that led to Candor. You might have seen in the media recently, there's been a lot of discussion about the reality of being a GP. And so, if it's a high stress, heavy workload environment, there's often a very difference of opinion, I guess, of the understanding of what GPs actually do. And so, we're finding that we're all feeling quite burnt out, especially with the pandemic. So, particularly with the government not recognizing us as frontline health workers, we had to fund our own personal protective equipment. We don't get sick leave. We don't get maternity leave. If we don't see patients, we don't get paid. And the amount that the government actually gives us back is pretty minimal. So, it's quite a difficult environment to be in. And so I was feeling quite burnt out, quite disillusioned by the whole thing at that point. And we were going through COVID. And so there was this basically we were forced to learn how to do things remotely. And so, with all of those risks of a pandemic, we had to be creative. We had to learn how to use telehealth to care for our patients. And we noticed that around the same time, there were a number of online medical services showing up that claim to be able to do the job of your GP online. And the concern with looking into them was that they're generally run by marketing executives or business executives, or they're owned by overseas companies. And so it brings into question just how appropriate some of these services might actually be. And so as a doctor, we take that oath to do no harm, and we put our patients first, and we're motivated to give them the best care. And there isn't that onus on these companies to do the same. And so I was having a bit of a rant and a conversation with my partner about it. And, I was saying we don't really know what advice people are getting from these services. We don't know that the treatments are appropriate. We don't know what exactly that conversation is. And, he basically said to me, well, why don't you do it better? And so it kind of Candor was born overnight. It was a, big discussion. And then we basically went, well, we want to build this from the ground up with doctors from the beginning. So, we're owned by doctors, we're run by doctors. Everything has been built basically by me from the beginning to go, the values behind this are different. We're not an anti-GP practice. We want to work with your regular doctor. We want to provide correspondence to them. We want to go, if they think that this should be done differently, we're happy to take things on board. And we want to give you some convenience, especially given that, GPs are really time poor. So having something like a conversation about the pill, while often it involves things like having your pap smears done and having a sexual health check, and we think all of that is really important, it may not be necessary every time you need to have a repeat prescription. And so if we can kind of take off some of that burden of the extra work for GPs as well, it gives them more time to be able to focus on the things that are, more in depth or need to have those face-to-face consultations. So we basically were like, well, we want to do this, but we want to do it better. And so, yes, that was kind of the thing that got us started.
It's so great. And, in doing so, a platform like this, I would imagine, actually takes a lot of pressure off, the local GP who is being slammed at the moment with so many people, especially now we're in cold and flu season.
I don't miss that, to be honest.
I don't blame you. I was just saying to you, obviously, off air that I had, just gotten through COVID and then got some terrible coldy, flu-y thing. But, there's a lot going around. But I would imagine that takes some pressure off local GPs who, trying to get a doctor's appointment at any time can be difficult because GPs are slammed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're working harder than ever. And so there is, especially if you throw in flu season, there's always that demand for extra appointments. And, if trying to fit in an acute mental health consult where you really need to see someone in person and have that conversation with them, it's really hard to fit that sort of thing in. And they're the consults that generally take a lot of time. And so if we're able to go, look, we can help treat your, sexual health or your acne online, for example, then at least that means that we're taking off a little bit of that extra burden. And it does mean that, often when there's a long wait to go and see your GP because we are so busy and there are so many patients who need to have those important conversations, that you're not going in with a big list. And so when that list is a little bit shorter, those things get a bit more of a focus. And so you're able to get more quality care because there isn't that rush to get through everything on your list every time. So if we can take off some of that pressure, then, that makes it easier on everybody.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And especially, as a woman who spent many years on the pill, I do think that that's, having to make an appointment to go see a GP every time just to get a prescription is sometimes, it's just so demanding on your time, really. So I think this is a fantastic option. I think it's great.
Oh, thank you. And look, I think one of the best things is that it's 24 hours. So, it is really hard to fit in a doctor's appointment in the middle of a work day, especially when you've got school hours and all of those things as well. A lot of our consults come through at some very odd times. So we usually will wake up, in the early hours of the morning, and there will be a whole bunch of consults that have come through overnight. And so being able to kind of offer that is, it's a great thing for patients to fit that into their life as well. So.
That's so great. And as you say, we've sort of gotten into a routine now of doing telehealth. So it's not new anymore, and it's not a sort of scary proposition. And in fact, for a lot of us, it's a more convenient option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was born out of necessity, but it's definitely the way of the future. There's always going to be some things that have to be done in person, having exams, for example, or, having a procedure done. Obviously, we can't do that on the internet. But there are a lot of things that, technology has made so much easier. And I think that the fact that we can do this for people and do it well is really important. There is, I guess, a lot of concern. One of the things that we were really passionate about was that being, in this online space, there's a lot of misinformation. And so, the majority of people who go to see their doctor have looked online. They've Googled their symptoms. They've tried to find out what's going on, and we all do it. But, we're finding that in certain studies, people are delaying seeing their doctors by up to 2 years because they are, finding their own information, and they're self-treating, or they're being treated by health professionals who may not have those quality qualifications behind them. And so, every day I would talk to people who had been looking up their symptoms, or talking to a kind of online coach or somebody who has basically said, look, I can deal with this without having the training behind them, and often using treatments that don't have any evidence base. And so, some of the time that can actually lead to more complications. It can make things harder to treat if you've been putting it off for longer. We know that some things are really difficult to have conversations about, but it's also really important that you're getting that information from someone who knows, exactly what is going on and how to manage it properly. And so we really had this passion to be able to provide that information online in the spaces that people are looking for it, knowing that they were actually getting that quality care. So, that was kind of that driving force behind this, was doing it, but doing it properly.
Yeah, which is so fantastic because, as you say, we're all guilty of looking at Dr. Google. I say that jokingly because clearly Google is not a doctor.
We all do it.
We all do it. We do. But I find it interesting too. If you Google, any sort of symptoms, it will take you from, oh, it's nothing, to, oh, I'm going to die next week. So I think it's
absolutely a lot of our conversations are reassurance. And look, in most cases, it's going to fall somewhere in between that.
For sure. One thing I'm really fascinated about, and you did raise it just before, was that you've started studies as well around cannabis and cannabis use, medicinal cannabis use. I'm actually really quite fascinated by that. And so maybe talk us through that and what led you to that.
Yeah, look, a really big part of what we do is medicinal cannabis consults. So medicinal cannabis has been legal in Australia since 2016, and it's been approved for a number of conditions. So things like chronic pain, mental health disorders, side effects from chemotherapy, insomnia, bowel disorders, the list just goes on. And so, look, because it's so new and it's been such a taboo topic and something that's a bit controversial, there are a lot of doctors who aren't comfortable with having these consultations. And so, look, any doctor in Australia can prescribe medicinal cannabis for their patient if they want to. They can go through the approval process, they can submit the paperwork. But a lot of doctors aren't in that space yet to be able to do that because there isn't really a lot of information out there. And they're not feeling like it's quite that comfortable space of the things that, we've known how to treat for a long time. And so we decided that we really wanted to be able to provide that as an option for our patients. And we provide a space for patients to come and see if medicinal cannabis is suitable for them. And we will also take referrals from doctors if they want to have their patients treated by us. And we will correspond with them along the way as well. So we handle all of the paperwork, all the applications to the TGA. We follow up with our patients. We make sure that they're getting what they want from it, that it's actually working for the symptoms that they have. We're building relationships with the companies that we're actually suggesting. So I had a conversation this morning with one of the smaller cannabis companies to kind of have an understanding of what it is they provide and what their products might actually be useful for, because we want to have that in-depth understanding of it all. We want to, understand the nuances of medicinal cannabis because it is quite a amazing kind of treatment, but there's so much to it, and just small changes to the treatment we use can have completely different outcomes for patients. And so, getting into this, I realized that there's so much that you don't know. And, it's a bit like anything. As soon as you get involved, you go, oh my God, there's so much to this. And so I've decided to kind of get more of a education behind it. And so I'm doing a professional diploma in medicinal cannabis as well in my spare time, and just on top of everything else. And, it's been really fascinating to kind of hear from experts in the field and to talk to these companies and to feel like we can actually have those conversations with patients to go, look, have you thought about using this product, for example, or if we do this way, this might give you more benefit. And so it's a growing thing. And, as we get more acceptance, I guess, in the medical community, then it's going to start becoming more mainstream. But at the moment, it's still kind of that hush kind of taboo topic where you don't really feel comfortable going, oh, this is what I'm using. But we want to have that space where people can feel like they can talk about it without feeling like there's judgment behind it. And, it's really quite an emerging field that we're really excited to be part of.
Yeah, I just think it's fantastic because while on one hand we, and I call myself we as in the general public, hear that it's legalized, I've never met anybody who has said, I use medicinal cannabis and this is why.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. So it seems to be this very underground thing still. So my mother had polio. She's no longer with us, but she had polio, lived with chronic pain. And I could never understand why it wasn't legalized back then for medical purposes, because you see so many people suffering and going through things. And huge studies overseas have shown for however many years that it works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can make a huge difference to quality of life. And we are finding for things like chronic pain, it can be an absolute game changer. And mental health is the other big one that we're having a lot of consults for is, these are the things where it's been really helpful for a lot of people. And so it's great to be able to be part of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so what sort of coming back to Candor, like what sort of challenges have you faced in launching this sort of application?
We're quite a small startup, so it's a very kind of that tiny little startup entrepreneurial sort of setup where we're just like, yeah, let's do this as small and minimal as we can for as long as we can. And so there's often that juggling act of balancing all these big ideas. So we've got all these things we want to do. We're having all these new innovations and things we want to kind of start, and we've got all these different pipelines happening, and it's balancing that with the resources that we have. So, it's kind of hard to go, oh, we have to kind of start with these small steps, put this on hold for the moment, get these things happening, and then we can bring this in when we're a little more set up. So I think we get a little ambitious sometimes with our dreams, but we're, it's good to have them. And we're working towards all of those as well. But usually that means juggling quite a bit. And I've had to learn quite a lot along the way as well. So, any learning that you be doing, it comes with making mistakes and then using those to learn how to do things better. And a lot of this has been outside my comfort zone. So there's been a number of occasions where I'm like, oh my God, I've no idea what I'm doing. And this is, my partner has more of a business background and is able to go, look, this isn't how you do this. And so it's been quite challenging to be, in that space where previously I was quite comfortable in my job. I felt like I had a good understanding. I could, deal with whatever was thrown at me. And now I'm like, oh, I've no idea how this works. So it's been really exciting having those new skills and new knowledge along the way. But the other big challenge for us was that I actually had a baby in the week that we launched Candor.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you. So it's been quite a big challenge, really trying to juggle that as well. So, he's really great at kind of letting me work while he naps, and we go on walks and I'll be on my phone at times, or he'll sit on my lap and have a feed while I need to do some consults. And so it's really great watching them grow together, but it's also, there's that guilt as well, I guess, of trying to be everything to your family as well as being everything to the business. And it's just the life of a woman, really, is that kind of juggling all of that mental burden as well, and feeling like you're not doing the best at anything that you're doing, but trying so hard to actually have that quality in everything as well. So there's a lot of that mindfulness of, well, while I'm working on this is the thing I'm focusing on, and getting as much help as we can along the way. But yeah, it's been a bit of a busy 6 months or so.
Oh, well, you are so busy. But you're right. It is the life of an entrepreneurial mum. And if any female entrepreneur, mum or not, will tell you, and what you probably already know, is that it's a continual process of learning. I don't know if you ever stop learning.
No, absolutely. And there's always something new. My to-do list is long, but that's okay. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I do find I get a bit restless when there's not much going on. So it's the right place to be.
You strike me as someone who really wouldn't want to have too much idle time on your hands.
I don't know what I'm going to do in retirement, to be honest.
Well, maybe you won't retire because, a lot of entrepreneurs choose not to, right?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, look, it's going to be a while off, but it might be nice to take a holiday at some point, but it's not really on the horizon at the moment.
For sure. And like we were just chatting before also that, different phases of your life as well. So I was saying that my youngest is 21. And so, when you get to this other sort of part of your life where you're not juggling the children so much that suddenly the world opens up and you think, oh, and now there's other things I'd like to be doing. So
absolutely. And like this kind of all, as I was saying, I've got an 8-year-old. And so, it's been this big gap. And then we started talking about, starting Candor and getting all of this started. And then I got pregnant and it was like, oh, okay, well, we'll add that into the mix as well. So yeah, it's been a bit of a juggle.
Wow. So a pandemic and a baby and a tech baby as well on top of all of that.
Absolutely. I'm a sucker for punishment.
Never rains at pause. So what is the demographic, do you think, for Candor? Who's more likely to use Candor, do you think?
Look, to be honest, it's pretty diverse. So the only criteria that you need to be a patient that you're over 18 and that you're in Australia. And so each of the conditions we treat tends to have very different demographics. So as we said, we provide medicinal cannabis consults, but we also have 2 other main verticals as well. So we do skincare, which is going under a big redevelopment at the moment. And so that will soon be quite a different, more in-depth process for our patients as well. And then we also focus a lot on sexual health. So we do a lot of consults around things like erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation. We do the contraceptive pill, we do genital herpes, and we're really focused on improving people's sex lives. And so, as a GP, I would get a lot of women coming in saying, oh, my husband or my partner is having these issues at the moment, but they're too embarrassed to talk about it. They're feeling uncomfortable. They don't want to come and see a GP. And so it's great that we can provide them somewhere without that awkwardness. So we do get a lot of sort of middle-aged men, I guess, and even younger men coming to us with these concerns. And then we find that with the women, the younger demographic tends to be mostly interested in things like skincare and the contraceptive pill. And then the older demographic is often a lot more focused on things like hair loss. And so we are getting quite a lot of women in sort of the 40 to 60 age group who, want to improve their hair loss. And it is something that can be quite debilitating for a lot of women. It really does affect their mental health. And so, it's great to be able to talk to them about this and offer some solutions. And so, there's also sort of that aging skincare is the worst way to put it, but trying to keep that youthful healthy skin, I guess, is the other thing we speak to a lot of older women about. And then our medicinal cannabis consults tend to be quite varied, so we've got quite young patients, but also I think our oldest conversation was with someone who was sort of in their mid-70s about chronic pain. So we do get quite a large variety of patients, and we try to aim to make our platform as user-friendly as we can. So, I tested the app on my grandmother who's in her 80s and kind of to see how friendly it was for her to use, and she did great. So, we're always refining things to try and make it as approachable for anyone as we can. And so regardless of how tech savvy you might actually be, we don't want that to be a barrier, I guess, to people getting care.
Oh, that's really good. And that's sort of, I jumped on and had a look at it prior to coming on, and it looks, it's user friendly. It looks great.
Oh, thank you.
It looks really good. So I love that you cover like a lot of topics that maybe people, as you say, have been holding back, not going to see a doctor about because for whatever reason they're either embarrassed or they don't really want to face it. But I guess it's so nice to hear that there's a platform out there for people. We're a huge advocate here for people to be okay within their own skin, within their own bodies, and that includes sexual health. When you talk about skincare, do you get a lot of patients, I guess, with is it acne? Is it dermatitis? Is it?
Yeah, so look, we're about to expand this quite a lot. And so at the moment, we really are providing treatments for kind of that aging skin, so, pigmentation and dryness and wrinkles, and the kind of healthiness of the skin is probably the better way to put it. And then also for acne as well. So they're the two main things we've been focused on. But we're about to launch a whole new sort of range, I guess, in terms of things like treating like rosacea and pigmentation and being able to kind of get that health back. And it's going to have a very different focus. So it's very exciting. It's all coming soon, really. But we're very excited about it. And we're doing a lot of development with some fantastic pharmacists and compounding pharmacies who have a real interest in this as well. So we want to make sure that what we're suggesting to people is evidence-based. There's so much out there that you can buy over the counter or from pharmacies that, look, it smells nice and it feels nice, but it may not actually be doing much for you. So we want to make sure that what we're suggesting to people is appropriate. And so, yeah, hopefully it's a watch this space and we should be able to talk a little bit more about it shortly.
Look, it's really, really exciting. I'm thrilled for you. Congratulations, because this is a mammoth task. And I think it can only get bigger and better, right? I think it's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Look, we're really excited. We've got all these ideas in the works. We want to be able to spend as much time with each of them as we can to make sure they're all as good as they can be before we add in something else. But there's always new ideas in there. So, we're really excited to be working with some really great people. And yeah, it's been a great change and, a nice way to kind of juggle life as well, because I get to work from home. I get to be around my babies. So it's, it's hard, but it's been fantastic.
Yeah, that's so great. And I guess, I'd just like to ask, anybody else, anybody who's out there and, they're a bit like concerned about an online platform, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it is a little confronting to tell a complete stranger on the internet your medical history. I would suggest it's really important to make sure that who you're speaking to is a qualified medical practitioner. And if there is, if they're asking for your medical details over something like social media, if there's, it's a Facebook conversation or it's not in a secure way, this is not a great way to go about it. If you're asking about your doctor and you want to know their qualifications, but there's some reluctance to provide that, that's also probably a bit of a red flag. So making sure that the people you're talking to are qualified for what they're doing. We are very transparent about who we are and what we do. We have terms and conditions on our website. We talk about how we use your data. Everything is confidential, and so that's always really important. And it's it shouldn't matter whether that conversation is in person with your doctor or if it's online or if it's a text consult. It should always be confidential. And it's really important to make sure that exactly what will happen with the data that you provide. And so we don't share that with anyone unless it's necessary, and we will tell you if we do too. And so there's always research that comes out of these consultations, but they're de-identified if that is used. So we only use it to try and better the prescriptions or the products that we're providing. And we need to be able to talk to people about that. So if there's anything that feels wrong about it, there probably is something about it that you should be avoiding. So it's good to know who owns these companies. It's good to know who it is, but that's just why I guess from the beginning, we've wanted to have me as part of this, which is not something I've been super comfortable about. I'm not great at putting myself out there, but, we want people to know who they're talking to. And the fact that we really care about what we do. We're not a big company. We're not a big, international group that are owning this and pushing this. It's us. And, we're doing this because we care about you. So, knowing who you're talking to, knowing that your data is secure, all those things are really important if you're going to be online. And, if they're comfortable talking to your doctor and providing that information, that's even better.
I think that is fantastic advice, and absolutely so nice to hear that it's all confidential. I think what you're doing is brilliant. I'm always so thrilled to highlight the achievements of incredible women. You are one, so thank you, Lisa, for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's been lovely.
And we'll put in the links as well, so that everyone can find Candor. They can jump on, have a look, and they can find more information there. And there are, questions and answers on there that I saw, so that's really great as well.
Absolutely. And look, if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out as well. Our support team is wonderful. And if there's anything that they need to pass on to me, they'll do that as well.
That's fantastic. Congratulations again, Dr. Lisa Beckett. Thank you very much for joining us here in the Confessional.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.